Hey VC, John here. This is a video which is I've been intending to make for a few weeks. If you just bear with me, I'll shut this door because the dishwasher's on in the other room. Sorry about that. And it's about our experiences over the weekend of Record Store Day. And I know it's a bit late for me talking about Record Store Day, but you'll appreciate why I had to have a delay anyway when I've told you the rest of the story. So, pardon me, just starting at the beginning. On the 24th of March I had a message from Dream Pop Jesse asking if I was going to be out digging on Record Store Day itself, because as some of you may well know, Jesse's a big fan of Tim Burgess, and there was a 7-inch and a 12-inch single of a song called Oh Men out in the UK but not in the US, so Jesse asked if I'd get hold of it if I was in a position to, which obviously he was happy to do. Now, Record Store Day was on the 19th of April, as you know, and we'd actually got tickets to see Ben Watt who was half of Everything But the Girl, in Hebden Bridge with Bernard Butler, who was the guitarist in Suede and on the most gifted guitarist of his generation, it has been said. So we'd already arranged to drive up to Hebden Bridge on the Friday, stay over with a friend of ours who lives there, and we would all go and see Ben Watt. Now, Harry was away for a few days with his better half, so we'd arranged to rendezvous in Manchester and possibly go to a number of record shops as part of Record Store Day. So I gave Harry the list of what I was looking for, let him know that. And if either of us were able to get what the other was looking for, then that was the deal. So, on the 18th, me and my wife Julia, we headed up to Hebden Bridge, which is about 100 miles away from here. And when you look back on some things you've done in your life, some days are just perfect days. And that Friday, the 18th, was one of those perfect days. Firstly, we set off, and we're slightly later than we expected to be, so we found a place to have some lunch. So we bought some bit of a picnic, salad and stuff like that, and it was the first good day of the year really where you could sit out and eat, so that was a good start. That then delayed us further into the day. Now the weird thing, all that week I'd been thinking that Hebden Bridge is a small place. It's only got a population of 5,000, which is pretty small for the UK. And I'd been thinking there's a good chance that Ben Watt is going to be out and about in the town during the daytime. So if we're there for half a day, and we plan to get there at lunchtime. Now, as it turned out, because we'd had an extended lunch ourselves and then we strolled to park, it did take us a while to find somewhere to leave the car. So we headed off down to find a record shop called Muse Music. And it was Muse Music and Love Cafe. Well, when we found it, it was possibly the smallest record shop I've ever been in. Got CDs, probably a small rack on a wall of about 6 foot wide, and probably only about 8 browsers. Anyway, there was an angular looking chap in there, and I sort of shuffled up next to him, and he was doing that thing where he looks over, which some find irritating. Well, I find irritating, to be honest. Anyway, I didn't take a close look at him, so then I headed over to the other browser where my wife was, and I turned around and I looked and I thought, that's Bernard Butler. Now the weird thing was, all week I'd been thinking that we might see them because it's such a small place, and I thought, where Bernard is, Ben's got to be. So I looked round, quickly around, and Ben was just heading out of the shop. Now what is the really weird thing is, because I sort of had this premonition that I was going to see them, I'd actually got my record collecting bag with Ben's 2 solo albums in, one that came out 30 years ago and one that came out 4 days previously. So we shot out of the shop, and we've made this mistake before where we've tried to speak, we've been in company with people and then not asked them for the autograph and then regretted it afterwards. So what I did was I followed Ben across the street and accosted him in the street, and it was a busy bank holiday weekend, sunny, so there was a lot of people around. And Ben was a bit startled at first, but then when I explained, and he was just really good about it, so he signed both records. I should have got them out, but I will just grab them now. And we did explain that we were sort of long-time fans of him and his wife Tracy, who we'd seen at a book reading earlier, and or Everything But the Girl. And he was just really gracious and not not, even though it was his downtime. So he signed North Marine Drive, and he just put, for John and Julia, best wishes Ben Watt in the top corner. And then we said we've had this over 30 years, 32 years actually. Well, my wife bought it before we were together. And then the new album, which he signed there. So it was going well. We then headed back into Muse Music, and Bernard was just coming out. We explained we were seeing him that night. He said, "I'll see you at the show." We then went back in the shop, and Bernard was just coming out, so we just said hello, but I didn't want to sort of disturb him too much and be a bit too creepy. Had a look through, and I picked out. If I go in a record shop I've not been before, and they're not rude to me, as can sometimes be the case, as we've seen on some people's stories on Facebook. If it's a nice shop, I usually try and buy something. This is what I found: the Flying Lizards, which was an experimental art pop band formed in about '76, something like that. I did make a note of who. It was led by a bloke called David Cunningham, and they had a series of lead vocalists, female, and they had one big hit single in the UK called Money, and then as a consequence of that hit single, I think that was in 1980, Virgin funded this album. They did have another 5 albums after that, but this was the one, and you never see this in excellent condition, so I did buy that. So that was the record, then we went for a quick pint for a drink. Then we headed up to our friend Hugh's house, and we said, "Oh, we've had a great afternoon. We met Ben Watt and Bernard Butler, and So we then went out, had a great meal out in a Greek taverna. Now it was run by a Greek family, and Hugh had never been in there. We'd never been in, so it was just an excellent meal and really good price. Then we went to see Ben, and he was superb, and it was so much better the second time seeing him playing the song, because we knew the songs, because we'd been listening to them. And so far this is my album of the year. So that was the day. We then had a good night out, and that was the end of a perfect day. Next day, got up, and Hugh had got to go off down to London, so we headed into Manchester to rendezvous with Harry and Hannah. Now, we were a bit late. I did bob back into Muse Music, and they'd sold 3 copies of American Beauty, Bruce Springsteen, which is what I was after. So unfortunately I missed out on those 3 copies, but that was my fault for not being early enough. Then we got into Manchester, and Piccadilly Records just had a horrendous queue right round the block. So contacted Harry, and it turned out he'd been queuing there for 2.5 hours. So we said, well, we're not going to stand at the back of that queue. We headed round to Vinyl Revival, which wasn't participating in Record Store Day, and bought a couple of records. Now, this is Twilight of the Dead by Misfits. As you know, I'm a bit of a zombie fan. This is a 12-inch single on really lovely blue. I just think that's really good. So I've been thinking I thought the artwork was excellent. And then the other thing I found was this. It's a copy of Rolf and Florian, the Kraftwerk album, ostensibly on the Vertigo label. Now, it clearly is a reissue, and I think it's unofficial. And when you hear it, whilst it's a good album, the quality's not great. So those were a couple of albums we bought. We then arranged to rendezvous further up Oldham Street, where Piccadilly Records is, with Harry and Hannah to see what he'd been able to come up with. Now, there were just 2 singles I asked Harry to get for me, which was it's like a recreation of the original Say Goodbye to Hollywood by Ronnie Spector, backed by the E Street Band, picture of Ronnie cuddling up to Bruce on the front. And then the other thing I wanted was Tracy Thorne, Ben Watt's wife, sings Molly Drake songs, which she'd recorded a couple of songs for a documentary. So those were the 2 I wanted, but luckily for Jesse, of course, Harry had been able to, because he'd also got another friend who was queuing somewhere else, to get 2 copies, both the 7-inch and the 12-inch of the Tim Burgess singles. So we sent a message on Facebook, etc. But unfortunately, either Harry myself or Harry's other mate, who I've never met before, could get hold of the Springsteen record. So I'm fairly philosophical about these things. I tend to think that if it's going to turn up, it'll turn up. So then we said goodbye to Harry and Hannah and headed off home. So that was another 45 miles, 50 miles down to where we live. Just got in this room, sitting just there, get my iPad out, and up pops a message from Brett. John, are you looking for, that's Brett Helm, Life on This Planet blog, are you still looking for the Springsteen album, because Jesse's queuing as we speak in Mesa, Arizona. So I said, yeah, I couldn't believe it actually. I said, yes I am. If you tell him I've been able to get hold of his Tim Burgess records. I think I might have sent that message earlier in fact, and if he can, could he get 2 copies, one for Harry, because he's actually done all the queuing. So get a message an hour later, Jesse's got your Springsteens. So quick exchange of messages with Jesse. I posted the 2 and singles off to the 12-inch and 7-inch, and he said that he was going to send these to me fairly quickly, but they didn't turn up straight away, and he did say that he'd wanted to send something else. So 2 weeks later, a copy of American Beauty, Bruce Springsteen. Now you can get this on eBay readily, fairly, but it's not as good as this copy, because this copy somebody in another continent queued up and got for me, and there's a nice note in there from Jesse which I'm keeping with that. But he also did send me some other singles as well, and he sent me a copy of that, which is from Record Store, I can't remember if it was 2013 or 2012, which was sealed. Now I have got the UK version of this, but as a completist, this is the US version, so that was great. Then he also sent me this, which was a US Record Store Day single by Sharon Jones. I'm not quite sure which is the A side. I think it's Calamity is the A side, and the B side is Ain't Nobody. For the jukebox, which he'd been threatening for some months, Pet Shop Boys single, and that's Paninaro, the 95 mix. Now Paninaro was a B-side from the 80s, and that's on ERG, which I don't even recognise that record label, and then Girls and Boys, which is a live song. Then he just sent me something completely on spec, and this is Fantagram, a band he'd been following recently, but the first track on this, called Fall in Love, and the B-side is Lights. Me and my wife love this, it's excellent, you know, for somebody to just send it speculatively. The only thing that's disappointing is that it's actually got a voucher in here which says I get $2 off Fantagram, their album Voices. Unfortunately it's not available in this country, and it wouldn't be in dollars anyway, so you know, I've probably got to go to Mesa to cash that in to save me $2. So all in all, that was great. And I know there's been criticism about Record Store Day and carpetbaggers and scalpers and all that business, but you just have to take it with a pinch of salt, because there's no point in ruining your life because of these people and worrying about it. And we go in a record shop where we've gone less simply because the store owner is so hung up on Record Store Day and people going in and buying it and who's getting distributed. And you think, it doesn't matter, no record's that important anyway, just have a good time. We did have a great day, and the fact that it was a hands across the sea thing with Jesse sorting stuff out for us, and then coming in the mail, it's just about friendship and enjoying music. But the final thing I would say is there's a postscript to this, because the Tim Burgess single wasn't sealed, so that gave me the opportunity to have a quick listen to it, and we thought it was really good. So I had a look, there was a few copies on eBay, $17.99, $14.99. Don't pay it. The only way to stop these people doing it is not to buy the records at above face value. Anyway, 3 weeks ago I think it might be now, I spotted a copy for $4.99. So I sent for it. So $4.99 that was. Plus the postage was still less than the amount I paid for Jesse's copy. So the moral of the story is everything comes to he who weighs, or she who weighs. So just don't get involved in the furore of greed and all that. Just enjoy it for what it is, and you will get some singles, you will get some records, and they'll all be good. So that's it from me. The next video I do, I know they're a bit sparse, but I've been really hellishly busy work-wise, and also a private project of a renovation of a house that we're doing, so that's what's tied me up. Now, the next video I'm hoping to do is a review of these 2 books, which is Boy About Town by Tony Fletcher, which is a memoir essentially of Tony Fletcher who's similar, about a year younger than me, and his involvement in the mods movement, and Paul Weller, sort of mod revival. And then this, which is called Simply Thrilled, The Preposterous Story of Postcard Records by Simon Goddard. And I'm halfway through that. So that's Edwyn Collins, Orange Juice, Roddy Frame, Aztec Camera, Joseph K, The Go-Betweens. And I'm just halfway through that. It's a bit harder reading that. That was like a page turner. This one isn't. So hope you're doing well, VC. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.